Finally, we have been talking about this for so long. I'm in Istanbul. You're now, as I can see in your background, beautiful New York. I can see the park view behind you. And we were going to try and do this in person, but it didn't work out. So now here we are. So welcome.
Thank you. I look forward to see where we go from here.
Thank you. I look forward to introducing you to a whole lot of people that may know you and want to hear more, or maybe some people don't know who you are, and you are such an incredible, fascinating person that my main focus was to make sure that more people get to see who you are, what you're up to, what your message is, and basically the theme of my show will always be for me hope that at the end of the day, anybody's able to follow their dreams. And as you know, my background has been in entertainment and music and management for many years, but I've also done a lot of live speaking and lectures. And my dream was to do something like this where I can talk to people one on one and introduce them to people that they don't know yet, especially if I can do something to bring cultures together. So this is perfect because here I am now in Istanbul, you're in New York, and hopefully the people that will be watching this, and now with the help of technology, these videos will be very easily available in all languages. So people can just with a click of a button hear our entire conversation in their language. So this is going to be greater at us being able to help each other, bring our voices and bring people together through conversation. I guess I should start from the very first question that I am now talking to a real mentalist. And when I try to tell people about you throughout the years that I've known you, the first question is, what is a mentalist? And I try to explain, but I don't think I'm doing you good service as far as explaining who you are, your background, because as much as I've known you for so many years, to this day, for me, you're still a mystery. And so for a lot of people that don't know what exactly a mentalist is, what they do, who you are, a little, we'll get a little background about you. So first, before we go into how it all got started, I want to know what exactly is a mentalist?
So I'll start with answering the question as if you were asking, what is a pianist? So, because everyone is different in how they play the piano and what they express through their music. A mentalist is a mystery art as opposed to like magic, but in contrast to magic, where it's more about using props and illusions, a mentalist is using things that relate to the word mental, which is things like reading body language, influencing how people think, a little bit of intuition. It's a combination of skills and intuition which create an experience for people. And I love that art form because it has the capacity to inspire people into a state of, I don't know, and embracing, making room for the unknown.
I've seen you in action. I have seen the I don't know question mark. I've seen the look of people when
Yeah.
they see you. And you call it art, you call it performance, and it is both. It's a gift as well, just like you said, to be a pianist, you have to also have the gift and you can excel at the gift. So, you say it's an art form, but is it also a gift? I mean, learning how to play, obviously, a piano, not everyone can play the same, not everyone has the same capacity to it. But I mean, I guess the main question is because people are going to look at your website, they're going to go and do some research for you. And the one question that get constantly is yes, I know it's art form, but I guess what I really want to know is this a special gift that you have that maybe others don't have? And we're going to go into exactly what it is that you do.
Well, as artists, true artists who bring their gift into it, the gift that we have is the capacity to express what's in our hearts through the art form. So the art form itself, yes, somebody like a pianist might have an extraordinary skill at playing fast or having a range that they can bring into being, but for me, the true gift is how they bring their own humanity into the art form in a way that builds on the practical dimensions of their abilities and transcends it and brings to life something more profound.
Maybe we should start in how you and I met years ago. We met through a mutual friend. And I remember that I'll fast forward to one day I had a bunch of guests in New York and it was at a hotel room and you showed up. And I didn't tell them what you do. Honestly, I still to this point, I can't explain it until they experience it. And this is something people have to see you in action to understand the magic and the art form that you actually have, which is, I think, the most, like you said before, the most beautiful part is to spark that curiosity, to wake up their mind. And because we're just on an everyday routine, we do the same thing, we talk to the same people, and then suddenly someone like Gerard Senehi comes into the picture and everything is completely not the routine, not the norm. And it's all about raising your curiosity and making you wonder. Because every
Yeah,
single time when I sit with you, I think about what you've done or what you say, and I honestly, I keep going back into what was that? How does that work? No, it
yeah,
can't be just this. It can't be just an art form. So that day in the hotel, we had a bunch of people there, and you started to, what do you call it? You call it your art, you call it performance. You started your performance by asking some people some questions. One of the first things that you did, and I'll say this because you were in my room, my hotel room. Everybody was gathered in my hotel room. And you picked up a fork from my hotel room, from my plate, and all you did was in front of us, literally just, a couple of feet away. You held it and you just rubbed the fork, and the entire thing bent, completely bent inwards. And you gave it back to us. And at that moment, everybody started to pay attention. Like, who is this guy? Where are we sitting? What's going on? What's the agenda here? And everybody took the fork. They tried to reshape it again and fix it. They couldn't do that. Then you got into reading people's minds. You actually sat there and you started talking to some people. You had a pad and you started to ask them to think about something or to think about an image. And at that very same time, you were showing us the paper. You were drawing exactly what that person was thinking. You were able to think of a name that maybe that person was thinking or something that blew my mind away. I don't even know if you remember this. I was standing over your shoulder while you're talking to somebody drawing something, and I have a lucky number that I hardly tell anybody, maybe a couple of people around me. But at that point, when you and I had just met, we certainly had never discussed that. And as you're writing into the note and you're talking to the other person, you turn around and you just gave me one look and you wrote my lucky number and you circled it on the post-it. I don't know if you remember this or not. You wrote my lucky, and I was not even in the equation. You were talking to somebody else. I was just watching. And you just glanced at me and you wrote, and you said, "This is for you." And you circled it. And I was blown away. I kind of backed out and I let you go do your thing. And I just sat there playing. Did I tell him this? No, he doesn't know about this. Nobody knows about this. How did he know about this? But that night you blew everybody away. And I knew that I am sitting in front of greatness. I didn't know who you are. I didn't know how you do it. I don't know if it was a magic trick. I didn't know if it was an art form. I don't know if it was a trick. I didn't know what it was, but I felt safe, which is, really important. Some people get really weirded out. I felt totally safe. And at that moment, like this button just got turned on. Like, what was that? What is
yeah,
going on? Is that just him or what everyone? The interesting thing is after you left, the question that everybody had was, can I do that too? Do
mm,
I have that gift? Do I have that power? Whatever it is, but everybody wanted to learn some more. I'm assuming that you've been seeing this response for years talking to people, and I know that you have performed and showed your art form in front of thousands of people. You've been at venues, you have been at private events. I know that you have also been invited to perform in front of royalties. You've been invited to speak in universities. You've been invited to have your own private events. You've been at talk shows. You've been on television. You even gave a TED talk. And obviously, you've had your own events and you have performed, I think, also at the White House, if I'm not mistaken, or at
no, It wasn't the White House. It was the English embassy for President Clinton.
That's right. Because I saw it. There's a picture of you performing for Hillary and Bill Clinton, and I
Yeah,
actually saw you also at a private party where I think was it Deepak Chopra had invited you.
yeah. No, I mean this kind of I don't use the word performance, but this kind of experience that I create, it is a performance, but performance it reduces what the art form is really about, and we need to use labels, so that's fine. But um, yeah, this kind of experience, especially when it has this component of a deeper, kind of transcendent quality, which is when we bring our full self to it, is very intriguing, powerful. And I think part of the beauty of it that I really love a lot, that, at the beginning when you're young, when I was a teenager and fooling around with this stuff, it was like, look at me, what I can do, that kind of thing. But then now what inspires me is the power of the art form to reflect the mystery of reality. Like when you said that you started to question everything you've assumed. In some ways, we came from an unknown place. The universe, the earth came from somewhere we still don't understand. And also the journey of being human is mysterious and unknown. It's so, for me, authentically, it's so inspiring to have this space for it not to be too rigid in our minds, because in some ways we're always creating the future, and we can create the future to the degree that we're not holding it too tightly as this is how it is, right? So that's part of the beauty, the inspiration. So whether I'm in a context of a company that's exploring innovation, or last week I did a presentation for a group of physicists and Nobel laureates who were exploring the fifth industrial revolution and what quantum physics has to say about all this. So it's part of the foundation of life is mystery. And so how to bring its relevance for me is really inspiring.
Absolutely, absolutely. I won't call it performance again.
No,
I'll
that's
call,
fine.
I call it a gift. Even
Yeah.
if anybody can just pick up and learn whatever it is,
Yes.
you
Okay.
have a special gift.
Okay.
And I think the first thing you do is you prove to people that you do have some kind of a special gift because we're seeing it in front of
No, I
our
don't. I
eyes.
just mess with their minds.
You sure do.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah. If
you
you want to
sure.
call that a gift, it's a positive outlet for my playful sneakiness. When I was a
And
teen, I was playfully sneaky, but it was a little bit annoying for people. This is like a
actually, that was
very,
going to be one of my questions. I wanted to ask you
yeah,
your experience, the experience you share with people
yeah,
that I see as this incredible gift. Because honestly, it's a gift to inspire people or to spark their curiosity is a gift. Not everyone can have that. Some people can do it with conversation, some people
yeah,
through music, some
yeah.
people, as you said, through art, film, and of course, my background is entertainment. But it's a gift to be able to surprise people, to be able to have them question their reality and stretch what is reality. To me, to be able to send that person into themselves to figure things out or to ask questions and then hopefully go out there and explore more. That to me is also, that's a gift. So this experience that you said as a teenager, when did this begin? Was it a curiosity first, or did you see that there was something in you that was different and you started to explore it?
It was a curiosity that was sparked by things I experienced. So I remember one time when I was 8 or 9 years old, my mother said she had a dream that her best friend's chest was on fire. And then she came down from the bedroom where she was taking a nap, and she saw her friend sitting there, and she had this very fluffy sweater, and she had lit a cigarette and it caught one of the strands, and her whole chest, kind of went in flames. The sweater, she was fine, but that kind of made me intrigued. It's like, wow, there are ways of having access to information that are not through just the logical mind. So that made me really curious. And then another formative experience was in high school. We had snuck into boarding school. I snuck into a room and we were playing blackjack. And I started as a joke calling out the cards that my friend was dealing. And they were actually coming out true. And I was like, I was just joking, but somehow I was getting it right. So those are things that intrigued me. And then I went on to college. That I thought, like a lot of human potential lay in our abilities to do these things. And maybe there is some potential there, so I even studied paranormal phenomena. I did an independent study in paranormal phenomena in my small liberal arts college. At the time, that was pretty radical. They let me do that. But then in the end, I had more of a kind of spiritual experience. And in that experience, I realized, no, developing abilities of, you know, being able to say things and do things. I mean, maybe there are values to that, and there are people whose destiny is maybe it is to do that. But for me, in that spiritual experience, it was more about the power of letting go of our self-importance and what that opens up in presence and life as a human being. So that's what moved me the most. And then my interest in the paranormal psychic kind of weaved into it was channeled to entertainment, but not really as an attempt to do psychic stuff, but it was more as a way to pursue a way to inspire people with the unknown and the mystery and all of that.
How old were you when this happened about your mom's dream?
My mom's dream was 9 years old. And then the thing with the cards
So
was
does
in
that
high
mean that your
school.
mom also was able to? So she had a dream about her friend, and then she went downstairs and she
Yeah,
saw that it was happening.
yeah, and it wasn't a common occurrence, but that along with other stories and different people and things made me really curious.
So at 9 years old was the first time that your curiosity just kind of blossomed.
I was always curious, I mean, for a long time, but that curiosity channeled towards this particular dimension. Yeah.
What did that look like as a kid? Were you just going around people like kind of saying, hey, saying
All
something to
I
them about maybe what they're
no,
thinking?
no, not really. What strikes me when I think back about it is I started reading at the time Reader's Digest, which was, for 8 or 9 year old, in some ways it didn't really make sense for me to be reading that, but it had stories about things that were mysterious, including UFOs and things like that, which is not something that I give a lot of importance to right now. But at the time, it was a place where my curiosity could go, and I wanted to be an astronaut, but I wasn't good at science. So instead of exploring outer space, I ended up exploring inner space.
Interesting, because you started with those questions, you started with those
Yeah,
curiosities, and then you're
yeah,
like, but now, not so much. But now, in 2025, everyone is starting to talk about these questions, especially now
yeah,
with what's going on. Just the other day, they were talking about this, this comet.
yeah,
So now more people are, I think to me, it seems like more people are now curious than ever about who we are, what we're about. Are we alone? Is this just Earth? This Earth is just about us?
yeah.
Is there more in the universe? So I think those curiosities is becoming a lot more popular now for people to not only question it but talk about it.
Yeah. And in a way, I would say it's something psychic or, having synchronicity experiences, knowing something that you had no way of knowing. I mean, there are simple examples of that, when you feel like you think of someone and then the phone rings. These experiences, in a way, they have value in that they give us confidence in deeper dimensions of reality, right? But I think um, what is what for me is more profound is being able to connect with the freedom of our minds and the freedom of consciousness beyond fears and desires, to be able to allow ourselves to be open in a way to the mystery of the universe and all that is, that it creates a certain innocence of thought in the sense of like, I don't already know. And that, for me, that applies to whether I'm thinking having a political conversation there's this space of curiosity because I don't see things as static. And I have to look freshly at a topic. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just repeating what I know already, and that's not authentic to me. I think it's a profound thing to realize that who we are as individuals is not static, because we can identify with having like a static self-image, but also the world around us is not static, and other people are not static, even if they relate to themselves as static.
It's interesting as you're talking, I'm wondering, do you still get surprised? I mean, even at your own outlook, or as you are trying something new and you discover something new about yourself? Is this an ongoing progress, or is it just kind of you discovered these interests that you have, these experiences that you share with people? Is it just that, or is it just something that as you get older, I mean, you've come a long way from 9 years old as a kid to then having fun with your friends in school to now? Is it something that's ongoing even for you?
Yeah, it's ongoing, and I would say it's richer in a way, but I'm still surprised, and I'm surprised that I'm surprised, because I'm surprised that I'm surprised because I know this about the universe, that it's ongoingly unfolding, right? We obviously, we all know this about the universe in terms of from generation to generation, things are unfolding and we see like more unfolds, more manifests, right? We sometimes don't realize that that's also the case with us. I mean, we can see it in our, if we compare ourselves to our infancy, childhood, adolescence, we see how much we've manifested. Sometimes when we're adults, I think society has things in place that create the illusion that we've become, that we're more static. But so I still am surprised that I'm learning something completely new about myself. I'm understanding the life and the universe in a completely new way. And then sometimes I say to myself, well, why am I surprised? You know, I know this is the nature of things. But I guess, you know, like everyone else, I have part of this mindset that we are more consistently the same person as opposed to always evolving.
When was the last time you
And
surprised yourself? Did you go inward and discover something about yourself, or see that you had this
no,
new talent, or you just, kind of unlayered another peel from the onion and discover something about yourself? Does it
yeah,
have, do you have to explore it, or does something like that happen all of a sudden? Something happens.
it's a curiosity. It really is the interest, because the interest opens the door to deeper dimensions of ourselves and of life. So one of the curiosities I have now is sometimes when you have wisdom, you think that you are bringing wisdom to others. And part of what I'm curious and something that's opened up for me that's really exciting is it's not, it's like people are giving me something back, and there's something that's happening that's collective, or it's something that we're doing together. So this illusion sometimes that I'm a person giving something to others is starting to lose its solidity, and there's something really intriguing about that. And so I'm learning more about that right now.
So it's really basically you're talking about the exchange of energy.
Yeah, and also understanding of life, because that's also where I keep expanding my understanding, like even, like realizing that I know there are things that I know deep down, and sometimes I have profound, like direct access to it. And then other times I feel a little bit disconnected from these deep insights, and then realizing like, oh, there's a way to integrate so that something that I know deep down can also be something that informs my everyday life. It's not just something that I connect with once in a while. And so there's some wonder of integrating things that in a way you could say your soul knows. Like
Sure.
my soul knows something, but my psychological self is conditioned with the things that the world has taught me. And so somehow there's a potential to integrate these things, which is really interesting because I can take my own growth into my own hands, and it's an act of agency of growing and learning, as opposed to being a passive recipient of learning. I mean, I'm stating something obvious, but what I'm also pointing to is that it gets really interesting when we consider things that are deeper about who we are.
And you see that nowadays, it just seems like more and more people are aligned with, you know, what you're saying, and to look
Yeah.
deep within themselves and questioning what's going on. Why do you think that is? What changed? There's, I mean, first of all, do you notice that?
Yes, I have, and it surprises. That's also another thing that surprises me is that the change that I feel internally, I'm also seeing externally. Partly, I'm asking myself, am I seeing it because I'm seeing it more strongly in myself than I see it in others as well? Because it's there in others as well, but sometimes it's just that it's not as visible because people are not aware of it in themselves, so maybe they're not expressing it as much outwardly, but I'm seeing it more in other people as well. And also, um, and I think also other people are expressing it more. I mean, I had an event last night, um, in a private setting, someone's birthday, young people in their 20s. And afterwards, I'm having conversations with some of these young men and women, and they're saying incredibly beautiful things, like they're dealing with the complexity of life and becoming an adult and not knowing what to do with their lives, and at the same time not wanting to fit in, but also the sincerity of really grappling with mystery of life, you know, and sometimes for them it might seem like a problem that they don't know, but what I realize in retrospect is that's the gift that we have, is to be able to suspend, not to buy into a static world where that we have to fit into, but a world in which we unfold ourselves. And so I see the beauty that's part of our unfolding, is kind of dealing with this mystery of not knowing what life is about and how we need to embrace it. But the reason one of them says it sucks, it feels terrible, you know, it sucks. And I think one of the reasons it
What
feels
sucks? What were
terrible,
they referring to?
they not knowing like what to do and feeling confused. And the reason it sucks is because we have the assumption that we need to have it worked out. Like when we're learning a sport, we don't say it sucks, I don't know how to do it, right? We just like, hey, this is fun. I'm learning and now I can do this and I can do that, right? And somehow with life, we're given as young men and women the idea that we have to have it figured out. And there's this pretense that other people have it figured out, and that creates the illusion that it's bad that we haven't, rather than actually it's the space. Not knowing is actually the space to unfold more. And I want to give you an example from, you know, Francesca and I, my wife, we have this education project. I want to give you an example from the education project because we help students engage with their lives and future and engage with some of the most important questions about life. So we went to visit one of the schools, and we asked students for their experience, and we had a couple of funders there, the principal, and this student raised her hand and she's jumping, bursting out of her chair. She's like, I have to share with you, she goes, I had a major breakthrough in this class. And then she shared, and then we said, yeah, okay. And then she just stopped there and we said, like, what is it? Tell us. And she goes, excitedly, she goes, I realized that I'm completely confused about life. And she was so
Welcome.
excited. You know, I think the funders were like, is that what the program does? Like, this is a breakthrough for a student? And we were like, well, why is that so exciting? And then she said, until now, I was following a script. You know, she was fitting in to what she was supposed to be doing. Fitting in makes us feel dull and disconnected. And then she said, but now I feel like I can think for myself about my life and future. And she said, I'm only 14 years old, so I'm not supposed to have it figured it out. And I look at my peers, and none of them have figured it out either. So there's actually nothing wrong. We're not supposed to have it all figured out. And this is why we're here in school and to learn and so on. So it was really beautiful. But in this illustration, that not knowing, not having the answer to like what is my purpose in life, is the beauty of it is the curiosity there is part of our unfolding, and it's the space to actually pursue it. I think what what makes it uncomfortable is the idea that's imposed on us that we have to fit in, and that we impose on ourselves too, you know, which I did as well. I carried this idea that I was, even though I didn't fit in, that I was supposed to, and something was wrong with me since I wasn't fitting in.
Were you what kind of a kid were you? Were you a nerd? Were you not fitting in, or was it because you felt like you had more curiosity than the other kids? What was that
No,
like for you at that time?
as a kid, not fitting in made me feel actually very separate and alone and shy and withdrawn. Because I think part of what happens with children and adolescents is we don't make room for their real experience. We don't create outlets for their experience to be explored, expressed, and related to. So it does create this sense of isolation, you know, which is also why we created this program, is because we all need, not just young people, but we all need a space to be ourselves, express ourselves, and find out and explore life and who we are and our relationship with others and all of that, and find out and learn from it and not see that we're not alone. Because when what's going on inside is not expressed, we think we're the only ones, you know, as I did as an adolescent. I thought I'm the only one going through this. And even in college, I remember going back to college at like my 30th year reunion. And I told my friends, you know, when I was graduating, I had no idea what to do with my life. And they were all like, yeah, no, me too, you know? And I think I was just like, really? You guys too? I mean, I had football players with me there in my,
Money well spent. You all
no,
come
but
out of
it was
college
like,
not knowing what to do now.
yeah, no, but the interesting thing was I thought they all knew what they were doing. I was the only one who didn't, and I think some of them, of course, pretended at the time, or just went with something conventional or whatever, or passion, real passions that they had, and you know that was very authentic. But I think hearing that that was their experience as well made me realize, wow, you know, we all that's part of our human experience.
I'm gonna go into more about what you do and the schools that you work with. I'm gonna go into that a little bit later on, and of course the
Yeah,
work that you do with Francesca. But it's interesting because you can tell that 14-year-old girl that a lot of us much older still, we've realized that we don't know what we don't
yeah.
know, and we're still, we're still exploring. But it's fascinating because
Yeah, so
first of
wait,
all, you're doing.
just to say sorry. No, it's beautiful what you're saying, and I just want to say that girl's gift to all of us is to say that it's actually a beautiful thing not to know. You know, that's even if we're 40 years old and going through a midlife crisis because we 40 or 50 because we think, oh, what am I doing with my life? That is actually a doorway to more potential to be ourselves, fully ourselves.
Absolutely. And it's incredible because also at this age, kids now, they have all the solutions and they have access to answers at a fingertip. So at 1 second you can go to Google. Now we've got ChatGPT and it's just becoming stronger and better and easier and faster. So what's happening is that growth is there, technology is there, and the people, the young kids, are able to move fast with it, a lot faster than I did. I remember my nephew, my brother's kid, when he was 2 years old, took an iPad out of my hand because it was so loud, and I took the volume down as he was playing this video game. I just kind of took it and kind of brought it down. He didn't even say anything. He just went back and immediately raised the volume again. And he must have been like 2 or 3 years old.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
now teenagers, now we've got ChatGPT, we've got technology, we've got artificial intelligence, and, we have access to answers or we have quick answers. But what's interesting is that the curiosity still, the emotions and the feelings of who we are, what we're about, what we're supposed to do. And I guess the beautiful thing, as you said, that this young 14-year-old girl showed to us is that possibilities are given to you in the unknown. Where there's
Yeah.
an unknown, that means that there's a new possibility there that wasn't there before. So you can explore new things. It's all about the results. And now this gives you the opportunity to say, I don't know, I'm curious, and to go and figure something out and to go into the unknown and to say that it's okay because that's where possibilities are created. It may not come immediately because we're so results oriented now. Kids, fast answers, immediate results, don't waste time, go get it. That's the attitude. So, now the opposite of that would be go inside, find the questions, find the answers, explore what's going on, and that's okay to be in that space. And if it takes a minute or a year, that's okay. So that's something that was incredible that we'll get more into it about what you're doing with these young, incredible minds of these young teenagers and school kids. So I wanna go back to you and how it started and the experience that you're getting. So obviously, when you did that little number for me, you can't just say that that was something that you've learned and you just taught yourself. When you were in Istanbul, you met a couple of my friends, and her brother unfortunately had passed away. You didn't know about that. You didn't know about their background. She certainly didn't say anything. And you sensed that. You knew it. Not only did you sense that, not only did you know it, but when she was talking to you, you said his name. And I was just listening and just smiling because I've seen you in action before. She was absolutely moved. And does that mean, can I call you a mind reader? I mean, is that what mind reading is? And I know that nowadays a lot of people are exploring their own gifts. They're trying to go in and say, what is it that I can do? And maybe now the conversations on being psychic or having telepathy, that's become common conversation now. And a lot of people I know in my life are exploring this and talking about it. And of course, you see it on social media, people talking about that. Would you say that you are able to? Is that a gift or something that you're able to actually read minds?
So that's a beautiful question. And this is the question that my art form is meant to give rise to, is what is the nature of how you do what you do? And I think part of my art form is to create that sense of like, is it this or is it that? And so my job is to create that question and not to answer it. Being clever here, I just, sometimes people think that I'm saying this to avoid telling the truth. I tell the truth if it has implications for somebody's life, of course, or their livelihood. So I generally give a generic answer, which leaves room for the unknown. That I use a combination of different means, some of them techniques, intuition, and so on, in order to achieve what I do. But like I give you an example that I did something for and I'm not going to describe what I did, but I did something for the president of the Anomalous Phenomena Research Institute. And he said it was the most convincing display of paranormal phenomena he'd ever witnessed. And this man was, at the time, he was 100 years old. He lived to be like 105 or something, or 100.
Something that you did.
Yeah, so something that I did, he said, was the most convincing display of paranormal phenomena he'd ever witnessed. And what I had done was actually more of a technique, like reading body language, influencing how people think, that kind of thing. And so I told them that this was not psychic, because I usually don't say that to people, but because with him, that what I had done was not psychic, because he's a scientist. And I don't want him to use what I do as a way to advance his scientific theories, because that has impact on other people's lives. So I said to him, and he would not believe me. So he literally, he just wouldn't believe me. No matter what I said, he wouldn't believe me. So finally, I had to actually show him the technique of what I did in order to convince him. And I felt a little bit bad because I didn't want to deflate his enthusiasm. But I think as a scientist, I had to be honest with him, in the specifics thing. But and sometimes there are amazing things that happen in my shows that I really can't even explain myself.
Are you in a zone? Do you feel like when you're in front of people
Yeah.
or at your shows, giving that experience, is that something that you feel like just kind of takes over? Are you in the zone at that point?
I mean, in some ways, I would say yes, because what I try to do when I'm performing is not just when I'm performing, but I try to bring a fullness of presence. So I'm not distracted by my mind, myself, my being self-conscious and all of that. And so that does create more of a sense of flow and everything. But even last night, for instance, I asked a couple during the experience that I created, I asked a couple to draw something as a synchronicity experiment between them. And what they drew, like the way they drew, they both drew.
Tell us, give us an example of what exactly it was. What you said to them. Set it up for us.
Yeah. Okay. So I said to them, this is a synchrony experiment. I want you to stand up, go in the corners of the room. Don't show each other what you draw, but draw anything you want and don't make it obvious.
So each of them had something to draw.
Yeah. And then I, as a mentalist, was going to draw the synchronicity between them. So besides whatever way that I was able to capture what they drew, I think the amazing thing is that they ended up drawing a house with a roof that was very unusual, but they both drew the same roof. So they both drew a house with the same roof. They both drew a door with a doorknob, a door handle. Not many people do that. She drew, like at the top, a thing with rays at the corner as a sun. The guy drew a same thing around the corner, but he didn't draw the rays, which in his drawing didn't make any sense. It's like, what is that? But somehow that's what he drew. And then she drew 3 stick figures and he drew a 3 with 3 tree like circles. So it was like the similarity and the synchronicity between them was just like amazing. And that's not something that I understand. You could say pure coincidence. I don't know. You could say, well, they know each other really well. You can find, rational explanations for all of that. But I just make room, for what I don't know. So then I interpreted the whole thing and did my own drawing. And it was just a beautiful moment, a beautiful experience. And this morning I was going through my papers and I saw the 2 things that they had drawn because I ended up with their drawings and I took a picture and sent it to the young woman whose birthday it was, and I said, I think this was really beautiful. You should send them to them so they have a copy of it.
Were they simultaneously drawing something, or one of them
Yes.
drew something and
No,
the other one drew it after?
simultaneously, not
So,
facing each other. Yeah.
and they had all anything in the world to think of
But
and
they
to
could
write.
draw.
Like they weren't.
Yeah. And I ask people to draw things all the time, especially if I say, don't make it obvious. People rarely draw a house,
Yeah, interesting.
so yeah. And I've had that happen before. Actually, someone who was at my show last night said they saw me a few years ago in the Hamptons, and they were saying how uh, I asked 2 people to draw, and they both drew a bicycle. And then I had a bicycle as well, of course. And then
Of course you did. Of
Mhm.
course you did. Tell us about telekinesis. What is that?
Telekinesis is the apparent, supposed ability to move or bend things with the mind, alter matter with the mind, affect or alter matter with the mind.
Is that possible?
Very good question.
Have you seen anyone do it, or have you been able to do such a thing?
There is apparent demonstrations of telekinesis. Are they real or not? I'm afraid I'm not able to tell you that.
Have you shown anyone? I mean, I've seen it myself where you were able to lift things off a table, whether it's tissue paper or a pencil, or you flipped over sunglasses that was sitting there on a table. So, can we call that telekinesis?
You can definitely you can call it telekinesis, whether it's real or not. You're not gonna get that from me.
You're
Nice
not getting
try,
it
though.
from
Very
you.
good.
So if
Very, very good.
somebody was able to have that, do you think, not saying you, of course, but if somebody,
Yeah.
do you think that it takes a lot out of their mind? Is it like a mental drain, or is it what actually occurs to a person if they're able to do such a thing? And does
What
size matter?
occurs? That's a little sneaky question because it assumes that if I answer this question, you might kind of go, oh, he has the experience of it, so he can talk about it, or he's just sharing assumptions or possibilities. So I
Oh,
think
because
I'll
I for
refrain.
sure did not see you throw sunglasses off a table
Right.
right in front of our eyes. That was not
Yeah, yeah.
me.
Let's leave it to I don't know.
Okay, I'll take that. I'll take that. So that means that as a mentalist, you are talking to people, you are connecting with them. Does that really have a strain on you
No,
to be able to
connecting with people is energizing. It's like a musician. If the audience is connected with you, then it gives you energy. If they're disconnected, if they're drinking and disconnected, for instance, then you put out more energy, but you don't get any energy back. It's not an exchange of energy. It becomes more of a transaction, and that's more tiring. But the presence of the audience, it connects to what I was saying earlier, is that there's the illusion that the performer is giving something to the audience, but the audience often is giving something back to the performer. And that is a beautiful exchange, like
exchange?
a beautiful exchange of spirit in a way. Yeah.
Does it ever bother you? Obviously, people are curious about you, and whoever knows you, it's like, hey, Gerard, you feel drained, you just want to be left alone, and you don't want to perform, you don't want to show your experience. Does it ever get to the point where you just really just want to retreat into yourself and not deal with people and their energies or that exchange of energy?
Generally, no. Generally, it's very inspiring to see that people are curious and it's a beautiful, playful thing. But, I've had events where particularly in India, where if it's a large group and then they all want to ask me or, yeah. And I'm like, after a little while, I'm like, I can't do anymore.
Drained.
So sometimes I want to beat myself up, so, but generally it's really a beautiful thing. People's curiosity is a gift that we give each other. So I really experience it as and I mean, occasionally people want validation of their ideas or whatever. That's okay too, because there can be space to explore and create more space for curiosity there as well. So I like it all. I like skeptics who come up to me and say, hey, I think you did this by, this technique. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay, let's do it again. I'll do it in a way that you can really test your theory. And then I do it again. And they're like, oh, I guess not. Okay. So I love all of that. It's really a joy to be interacting with people.
It must be. It must be. What about the people that come to you and like, hey, Gerard, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to go that deep within my own mind and create this. So what would you say to them? Is that something that you tell people that they should, or how can someone start exploring inside their own mind and find out if they have any kind of maybe special gifts or powers
Yeah.
or just curious about their life? What would you say to them?
Yeah. Well, I think it depends because I've had several billionaires approach me to ask to learn.
They want to bottle your talent.
One of them said, I'll pay you $1 million to teach me how to do it. And I was like,
The audacity.
it doesn't cost $1 million. I can't do that. I would feel like I'm ripping you off. But then another one was really interested in exploring life, like going deeply into themselves, like you're saying, which, and they never asked me about the mentalist thing, about how I do it and all of that. And then yet another one, his assistant reached out to me and said he'd really like to learn from you. And then I wanted to clarify, like, well, learn from me. Is it to do these things or is it learn from me about the perspective of way of understanding reality that's helpful to us in, in life. Do they want to learn about going more deeply into their understanding of life, or do they want to learn how to do these things? Those are two different things.
Like, what is
So
the
I
purpose
clarify
of their
that. Yeah,
interest?
yeah.
You know,
And then, if they're interested in life, then I'm always happy to engage. That's also a gift for me, is just the gift of their curiosity. That means that I can learn more. Even if I'm sharing my wisdom, I'm always learning. So if they want to learn the mentalist thing, I generally say, look, it takes a long time to teach people to do this. It's like if you went to a concert pianist and said, I'd like to learn to play this piece that you just played, will you teach me? I'm like, and I just don't, I can't work
yeah,
one on
everybody
one with
wants a
someone.
shortcut.
Yeah. No, they just don't know that it's, to be able to, I mean, some of the things that you can learn to hit the keystrokes, but it doesn't mean you can play music, too. So it just takes a while to learn to play music.
Has it ever been very difficult to read someone when you're with their energy, you're talking to them? Have you ever like hit a wall or a block with them? And is there a reason for that? If so,
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
what do you think that is?
Sometimes.
What's behind that? Do you think that people are just themselves closed off, into possibilities, or is it an energy exchange gone wrong? What is that?
Like, I don't know, just sometimes, obviously, I read body language, and some people are more transparent than others. I mean, I don't do everything through body language, but some people, I can look at them and really get a very clear hit, and how they show up and their expression and all of that. And other people are much harder to read.
Have you ever worked with authorities? You just said that you sat with a scientist. I mean, do you have the scientific field trying to sit with you and explore?
Yeah, I've had scientists, I even had scientists put me in an MRI, and I said, look, I don't claim that what these things I do is real. So if you're putting me in an MRI, you're making assumptions, all of that. And then I was going to create a documentary around it. So I agreed to do the MRI. I've had different scientists try to better understand what I do. I've been approached by 3 governments to help them either get back in power or do things more effectively in government. I don't get involved with that.
I
And
mean, what could be
obviously,
their question? Like, help us what? Like,
help me get back in
help us
power.
into the minds of people, the masses? I mean, what
Oh,
could they have seen in
I,
you
I
to
don't,
ask that?
I don't think have, because they don't understand what I do. They just see the potential there to do all kinds of things. So they're like, can you just help me get back in power? Or can you help us deal with division in our country? Was one thing here in the US that somebody approached me. Yeah, 2 of them were, can you get me back in power?
Interesting, interesting. But if the outcome was to bring people more together, is that something that could have interested you, or just you didn't want to get involved with this kind of topics and these kind of conversations with these kind of people?
I understand a lot about polarization, division in the country and all of that, but I think the solution for me is in education. So that's why I feel like that's where I've developed an expertise working in education. I used to be a teacher and social worker, and the last 15 years running this nonprofit with my wife, I've come to understand, learn a lot, because I think the difference, I think once I had this more limitless mindset, then it made so much room for me to learn in terms of the program we created, even to learn from what we did, as opposed to like thinking that I already know everything. But I learned a lot from what we did and how we did it and how the students helped us create it. So I learned a lot after the fact. So now I can, speak to some of the important aspects of education in the way that I couldn't at the beginning when I was creating the program. Like I learned a lot from that girl and many other students who have said incredible things. That was just one small example of many insights that students shared with us. I've learned from them. I had a lot of students said this class helped me with it's like therapy. And I was like, oh, I didn't set up to do a therapy thing. What is that about? But then looking into them, I see why. So then I see how it's relevant. I learn a lot about mental health. Like we relate to mental health. You know how I was saying about the power of the unknown and how it creates space to look at life with more depth, right?
Sure.
And that how we assume things are kind of static. We relate to the mental health crisis in a way that's very static. We have social media that's obviously people are saying is a cause of mental illness and elevated rates of suicide. And obviously, social media is a contributor, but I don't think it's a cause, you know? And so by creating space around these things, we can learn more about reality and what is really impacting students, you know, not just our ideas from what we see on the surface. On the surface, we see the truth that social media, phones is having a profound impact. But that's the surface of things that is more obvious to recognize. But there are deeper currents that, you know, are really relevant. And by understanding these deeper currents, then we can also bring solutions that we don't have yet.
Are you able to turn it off? Your thinking, is your mind always on or do you switch off? Because I'm going to lead that into what you're doing and how you met your wife and how these educational programs started. First, I'm going to let you answer that and I'll tell you why I asked that.
So my mind is like your mind and everybody else's mind. It has structures that are more like defined. It has the constant ongoing of thought, the thought process. Um, I'm, I think part of what happened as I got older, you know, I meditated for 2 hours a day for 20, 25 years
Which is a
to
lot.
try to um, not identify with my mind. And it really didn't really work. Um, what happened to me was when I connected more with my heart and what I wanted, you know, why I was here, why, how I wanted to show up, you know, what it meant to really be myself in this deeper sense of not just a personality or a self-image, you know, not how, you know, part of my practice of meditation was how I could be a better version of myself, a better image. But in the end, I think when I started to focus more on, well, how, when I realized that didn't work for me, I was like, well, what do I want to do? Well, I want to contribute in some ways. And when I put my focus there, then my internal process was not as much, it was still there, but it's just not as prominent. We all have the experience of at times our minds not being too prominent. If we completely identify with thought, if we feel really angry at somebody, we have to lash out to them. If we don't totally identify with it, we feel terrible, but we don't lash out. If we don't identify with it at all, we might feel a little something and it's like it doesn't matter. Have this range within us, yeah.
The reason I asked, had you ever turned it off, is when we sat together and when you were telling me about how you met Francesca, your wife, it was through these meditations, retreats that you were going. And I think you said in one of the retreats that you were there, it was basically a no talk retreat. So I think for a couple of days or a few days,
A couple of weeks, yeah.
couple of weeks. So you
Yeah.
actually did not talk. You were in a retreat where you absolutely did not speak to anyone for 2 weeks.
In this particular retreat, we had like discussion groups, but otherwise we didn't speak at all. But I've done solitary retreats where I don't speak for 6 weeks.
You've gone to a retreat where you haven't, it was a solitary retreat and you didn't
Yeah.
speak to anyone, no internet, no Wi-Fi, no
Nothing.
person, nothing for
6 weeks.
six weeks.
Yeah. And
What
if
did
I
you get
needed
out
to
of that? How,
communicate,
what did,
if I needed to communicate, it was in writing. Yeah. If I needed something, you know, like
what did you get out of that after the 6 week period?
I think during that retreat, so that retreat was my instruction. I had a teacher, and his instruction was let everything be as it is 24 hours a day. So he said, even when you're sleeping. I was like, even when I'm sleeping? And he's like, yeah, even when you're sleeping. So I did the practice. Sometimes it was incredibly hard because when you try to not engage with anything, your mind maybe throws, or maybe it's you, I don't know, like maybe you create, fantasies and terrible things, and so you have something to focus on. But then towards the end of it, I had a very profound experience, which was that I stepped out. I would do meditation practice, but I had like 15-minute breaks in between every hour. So in one of those 15-minute breaks, I was stepped outside the house where I was staying in and just looking at the fields and the mountains in the distance. And all of a sudden I started to experience this profound sacredness of life, and incredibly moving. It was almost like the place that I was looking at in the far distance. There was no distance between where I was looking and where I was, and this
Incredible.
extraordinary sacredness. And then there was this voice in my head, which was, something beautiful is happening to me. And then I felt like, oh, this is my ego making it all about me. I just experienced something sacred, and now I'm spitting on it by making it all about me and all of that. And then I started to feel terrible about myself. And then I remember the practice that I was supposed to let everything be as it is. And I realized that I didn't have to hold on to, oh, now I'm enlightened, I'm connected to sacredness, or now I'm a terrible person and I'm just, it's all about my ego. And so that was a very powerful lesson, that we don't have to identify with what's happening or moving through us. We can just let it be what it is and just experience it and witness it, engage, whatever, but not
But that's also
say,
sacred to go inward and to have it be about you and your life experience and your inner growth. I could say that that's sacred. That is part of the whole part of the process. Not in a narcissistic me. So I call it the meitis. Some people have the meitis disease. It's all about me. But to be able to go inward and to see how you're connected, where you stand, who you are, what your
yeah,
connection with that nature is. That is part of I would imagine, part of the process.
yeah. The particular experience I was describing was me. But also, so I agree with you with what you're saying. And then I also see that I have to be careful with even that, because I see that I can create too much of a narrative of, this is where I'm at, this is where I came from, this is where I'm going. And then it becomes a little bit too much. That might obscure, the fact that everything is very permeable. My relationships with other people is very mysterious. I think the underlying insight for me is that we need to hold who we are and everything we understand about reality with not too much rigidity. Yeah.
Well, talking about your relationship with other people, it's actually going to your relationship with your now wife, Francesca, who I had the pleasure to meet, this beautiful,
Yeah.
strong Italian woman, world travel, very deep person, strong woman.
Yeah.
And she's a girl's girl. Hanging out with her, I got a chance to also see
Yeah.
that in her. The story that you told me was that you had known each other for many years without knowing that she was one day going to be your future wife. But also, I remember Francesca was laughing and telling me that I had a crush on him, but it just never worked out. We'd see each other in the retreat and we would talk, and I respected who he was. And then she had her own life and she was going on. And somehow the universe will keep bringing you guys together again, which we now know why, for the work that you guys are doing as a team and a husband and wife. But it was one of the funniest stories was you guys were at a retreat that coincidentally worked out so that you both would share the same space. And here she is, and there's this connection between you guys, and you were put together into this one space, and you couldn't talk. You guys were at this retreat, but you were not allowed to speak with each other. And I can only imagine what that must have been like, and only because I got to see what happened afterwards, which was the union between you guys. So fast forward, you're married, and obviously you have a lot in common, and there was years. This is also for some of the women that are listening, or men, men or women that are listening. It showed me that you could love somebody and not be with them for years. But if the karma of that relationship or if the union was meant to be, that sooner or later that connection will come together and make it happen. So there's a lot of girls that are probably want to love to hear this, that maybe they're disconnected from someone that they love, or they want to be with someone and they're disenchanted. Francesca showed me that you can have that, and years later, if that person is yours, you connect and you get together. So time really is meaningless. So that was something that I got that was very interesting, hearing your story, and also the confirmation that, if two people are meant to be together, it'll happen, disregard of time, space, and time apart. So that was fascinating. But obviously, you two came together, and the union resulted in this incredible work that now you're doing together as a team, which is these educational programs that you have with schools across the country. And
Yeah, the schools are where we work in public high schools in New York City boroughs like the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. We aspire for system change in education, and we're starting an initiative to lead towards system change after having had beautiful impact in public schools for 10, 11 years. We're only in public schools in New York. And for the men I don't know, the men who are out there, I just share that I don't know if I believe in like this soulmate destiny. It certainly feels like that, like the rightness of it feels so profound. I could use a word like that. But what I wanted to share is that as a young man, I was actually had quite immature, and I had a lot of growth because I just wasn't really ready for a relationship. But that I had unique circumstances that I was sent to boarding school when I was 4 years old and sent away when I was 2 years old before that. So I think that affected me, and but I saw that as a man, I created this idea of what I wanted in terms of a relationship, which was based on kind of pain that I had in my life. And that idea isn't what my soul needed, really, right? So, yes, Francesca loved me a long time before I even recognized, even though I knew her for a long time. But what happened to me is at a certain point, when I made more effort to really be myself, at a certain point, I said, I'm ready for a relationship. And I started looking around, looking around. I hadn't seen Francesca for 10 years. And then I went to this retreat. I walked in. She's the first person that greets me going inside. She just happened to be near the front door. And my mind goes, Francesca, of course. And then it just like all clicked together. And then I was like, oh no, but wait, I'm on a retreat. So I better let go of that thought, because otherwise I'm going to be distracted the whole retreat. I'm going to be like thinking about her. So I let it go, and then by coincidence, the place was full, and they had to send two people inside this charming Airbnb a few miles away. So the two of us ended up, driving there, and then we were spending the nights there, and each day, each evening, we would go back and forth from the hotel where the retreat was in Tuscany. And we
amazing.
had this field of you know, flowers in the morning. We wake up to the sunrise over a field of
And you
flowers.
couldn't talk with each other.
Yeah, we couldn't talk, and I hadn't. I had almost like I told my heart, this is not the right time. You just have to wait until after the retreat, because also I didn't know what her circumstances were. I didn't know even if she was available, if she was single, all
How
of
many
that.
days were you in that retreat?
I think it was 2 weeks, probably 2.5 weeks, up
So
two
you
weeks.
guys are hanging out together in the same Airbnb, not talking to each other for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But you're saying, oh yeah, Francesca, she may be the one that was meant for me. She's thinking, I can't believe that I'm with him in this place right now. We're wind up together at the same time, the same space, in the same Airbnb that was chosen for us, and we can't talk for 2 weeks.
Yeah, we didn't hang out at the Airbnb because the retreat was day and night, so we would just go there to sleep. But yeah, it's a just an incredible mystery. But I think things line up when we are true to who we are. That's
at
the
the right
that's the
timing.
lesson that I get to it, and it's an ongoing thing because I'm always curious about aligning myself more. That's what I was speaking about at the beginning, which is this curiosity about what it really means to be ourselves and aligned with, one question I started to ask myself, what does it mean to be aligned with the energy of the universe also, because that's a part of it.
I'll go back to the school part again in a little bit, but because you're
Yeah.
talking about Italy, I am curious. You have traveled the world. I understand that you were raised in Switzerland, right? Born there as
Until I
well?
was 12. No, I was born in Paris. I lived in Switzerland until the age of 12, and I spent 3 years in Iran in between.
3 years in Iran. And then afterwards, you went where? US.
New England.
So you've traveled, and obviously you've shared your experiences with people around the world. Have you seen a difference in culture? I love to talk to people about their various experiences and cultures and people. So, do people react differently with you? Because in America, I'd imagine everybody's open to it. Well, actually, I saw it here in Turkey as well, and also I saw it with a bunch of Iranians that you were able to share your experience with. And at the end of the day, shock, awe, surprise, curiosity, wow is a universal language, which is what you bring to people. But what is it like? Have you seen a difference? Is there a difference in cultures in different countries? Do people react differently to you?
Yeah, definitely. One time I had the fun of doing an event for a bank where they had clusters of people from different countries. So I would go to the Japanese, and then I would go to people from India and Europeans, and different groups, and some of them didn't speak English. But yeah, there's definitely different expressions, and occasionally I do something. Our schools are in the Bronx. I do some things occasionally in school, not too much, but in that culture, awe and wonder is expressed like I'm running away from what you're doing, in laughter. In Holland, it surprised me how they can be very skeptical, but once you make them question their skepticism, they can go to the opposite extreme, and all of a sudden they'll be like these incredible believers. The Japanese are really fun, they're like, oh, they're really like, it gives me a lot of
Receptive.
joy. Yeah, there's a lot of joy. Middle Easterns are very, they believe in psychic phenomena, so they associate it with that, and they will ask me if I do readings. Yes, it's a beautiful mix. It's different, but there is a universal quality of how wonder creates suspension of reality, and there's also this, in whatever cultures I go to, there are people who try to figure it out, or they either take the position that I'm a magician, or they take the position that I'm a psychic. But that way they figured it out. They're like, oh yes, he has these abilities, these gifts, and I figured it out. But there are other people who are just like, whoa, is it a gift? Is it a magic trick? Is it like, and they're in a space of wonder. And
And all you
sometimes
say is,
people go in
yes.
and out.
Am I a magician? Is it a gift? Well, yes. Whatever it is you want me to be, whatever you think I am, I
You
am.
see, yes, you're getting very good at answering my questions now.
I'm quick. I come from management, so I quickly know how someone wants to be. That's what you were saying. You read body language, I read the other side.
Yeah.
But if somebody asked me, I would say, yes, my friend who's gifted is this, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to say that. I'm not. Don't
And then you
worry.
have people who, like last night, I was very moved by these young people because some people, instead of trying to figure it out, they value the experience of not knowing, and then they want to express their gratitude. And that's such a beautiful thing when people express their gratitude for this suspension of ideas.
What
That
I
means they're
love,
recognizing that there's value in not knowing.
what I love, see every single time, whether you're showing something for me, you're sharing a gift or experience with me, I'm always in awe. I'm always shocked. I'm always surprised. No, I'm not surprised anymore. Since I've known you, I no longer get surprised, but I like it. I'm like, oh, he did it again. That's something. And What I love is watching people's reaction to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Is he a mind reader? Is he a psychic? How does he do that? What does he do? But seeing their responses to you, I love because you see their faces. I could be watching people that I've known for a long time, and that face I haven't seen. You bring
Mm,
out the childish curiosity and you bring out the awe and the amazement in people. And for that moment, you see this happiness in people because they were just, you got them. They're shocked, they're surprised, they're in awe, they're curious, they're scared, they're freaked out, and you give that experience to them. I kind of want to be there with the camera when they're watching you because you're bringing out their inner child. And that was something that was so beautiful for me that I've constantly see. So it's got to be such a great feeling. But having said that, are there any downsides to any of this? Has there been people that get freaked out or they look at you as like, oh, you're practicing something that's not godly or they're afraid of you? Have you had that experience?
occasionally, I remember more, about 6 or 8 months ago, I did a show for an ice cream company in rural Michigan. It was their holiday party. And so they had all the factory workers, people on the factory floor, all of that from rural Michigan. And one woman, and I did Q&A afterwards. Sometimes, I don't do that often, but sometimes. And I remember one woman standing up and saying, um, I just want to say I'm Christian. I believe in Jesus. And I think what you're doing is not meant to be what human beings are not meant to be doing that. So I just want to tell you I'm not comfortable. She said it with a lot of love and care. So I think, I had to respect that because it was delivered with beautiful intention, but there was the idea that what I'm doing is the work of the devil. So I occasionally have that. You remember one time, uh, my wife arranged for me to do a show we were on a holiday on an island, and there was a man who would collect fruit in his village off the trees and come sell them to the resort during the day. And Francesca befriended this man, and then at some point she offers for me to do a show for free for the village, the people in the village. And then we're walking to the show. You have these kids coming down for cockfights, and it was a real experience of a village in the Caribbean island. And I think in that environment, people believe in voodoo and that stuff, and they associated what I do with that, so they were pretty freaked out. But it's a very rare, and I've had also someone from, I did a show some years ago for Merrill Lynch, the finance company, and I had a couple come up to me afterwards again with a lot of love, and they said, "This is the work of the devil. If you let us, we can help you liberate yourself from that, absolve yourselves from those sins." And I was like, no, what I'm doing is just entertainment. It's just, and all that. And they were like, no, this is the work of the devil. You can't do that. You're hurting yourself. And they were really trying to help me. So on one hand, I was like, I'm feeling the love. I'm saying no to the love, but also the love is coming with an idea. So this is like the paradox, that sometimes love is imposed as an idea. So you try to honor the love and respect the love, but also say, hey, the idea is wrong. That's not the right
Right.
idea.
Well, that's what happens when people go into themselves and when they go into these places where their mind just can't figure it out and they don't have the answers or they can't come to a conclusion for themselves. So go-to would be if I don't understand it, probably it's not good for me. It's probably not godly. So were you ever able to reverse their thoughts about that? Were they able to like actually see that maybe this is a gift, maybe this is a blessing, maybe this is something that is godly actually, asking people to go inwards and to explore their world and themselves?
Um, I think that performance can be mind expanding. So I've had a lot of people. I don't know that I've reversed, those particular ideas. Not, I can't think of a single time when I have, but people say it opened their minds. And there's one fun story of uh, actually reversing somebody's idea with the performance, because when Francesca and I were getting married, we went to LA to spend time with my mom and family, and and have a little ceremony there. We were flying back to New York where we were going to get married, and we were on the plane, and there's this man who sitting next to us, Orthodox Jewish man, and we start speaking with him, and it turns out that he knew my father in Iran. My father died when I was 2, but he knew my father. So we're talking to him, and then he asks us questions, and we tell him we're getting married, and then he asks if Francesca's religious, and she's not, and and um, and then my family came from a Jewish background. My spiritual view is more, not tied to a particular religion, so I never practiced the religion, but he says, at a certain point, he says to me, maybe God put me on the plane to stop you from making a terrible mistake. And what mistake? And then he starts to explain the story of a man who goes to his rabbi and says, I want to marry this woman, but she's not Jewish. Can I have your permission? And the rabbi says, I'll take the Torah and take the sacred scrolls and throw them on the floor and spit on them and stamp on them. And he's like, well, why should I do that? He says, well, this is what you're asking me to do to bless, you from getting married. And then he ends the story with the woman's girl was Francesca. And so Francesca is Italian, she doesn't take anything from anybody. She's like, enough. I think the whole plane heard her say enough, She had such a strong reaction.
I could just see that, yeah.
Yeah, he just like stopped in his tracks. And we were in silence for about an hour and a half. We were in silence. It was just like letting in the inappropriateness of that moment, the three of us. And then
And
he
you're stuck on a
starts,
plane together.
yeah, we're stuck on a plane, yeah. And then he pulls out some like a bag of nuts or something, and he makes some kind of peace offering. And of course, we both take it. And then we start talking a little bit. He says, what do you do? And then I say, well, I'm a mentalist, and I love to do show, and I love to get people to suspend their fixed ideas they have about life and things. And so then I do a few things, and then he's totally blown away, and he goes to this place of innocence. And then finally we land, and as we get up and go, he says, I just want to say I give you my blessing for your wedding
Wow.
tomorrow.
Wow. What do you think changed so fast from that extreme answer to before the plane lands, you get that
I
answer
think
from him? What changed?
I think it was a 1-2 combination, because I think Francesca, she was being herself and showed her humanity, by saying, no, you can't say that. It's unacceptable to me.
Don't mess with love.
Yeah. And then me, in my own way giving, that was my own form of saying, hey, you might have fixed ideas, but, those are not meant to be imposed on other people. So I think it was both, it was us expressing our humanity towards him.
Well, I do believe that that was meant to be. That was a trip that all of you had to experience together. So
Yeah, it's beautiful because, yeah.
that probably um, changed his views maybe, and also just gave you, both see some more clarity and the love that you and Francesca had together at that time. I'll tell you a really quick story. I was part of an expedition across the Sahara Desert, and the Friday prayer leader at that time in Palestine, a very devout Muslim, was supposed to be one of the people in this expedition. And here I am flying in from New York, and it was the first time everyone sits together and they have a meet and greet. And immediately I sit there, I was tired, I had a long flight, and I think we flew into Jordan, if I'm not mistaken. And as soon as I sat down, I see this very devout Muslim man who looked like he was a mullah. And right away, I had no hijab or anything. He looks at me, I look at him, immediately thinking there's not going to be much in common here because he's going to tell me all these things about how I should be. And I probably have some preconceived ideas about him and his beliefs. And without saying a word, we locked eyes and there was a disconnect. But respectfully, No one said anything. Fast forward a couple of weeks later in this trip, we start to talk and I get to see him and I get to hear like what a funny guy he is, what a kind-hearted person he is, and how really devout he was. We had like little bickering back and forth with each other. And after some time that we had to break bread and we had to share the same space and we had to, without any agendas or expectations. But the bottom line was that after that experience, we both walked away with a different image and a different view. And I
Yeah.
said to him, and he looked at me and he said, I'm surprised when I first saw you, I was going to say some things. He goes, but having had a chance to get to know you, you're probably one of the most devout, spiritual, faithful persons that I've come across
Yeah.
without all the religious backgrounds, because I'm not a
Yeah.
religious person. And I
Yeah.
looked at him and I said, and I had this image of you and what you're supposed to represent, and I realized that you're just a man. It's just a kind-hearted man who's following his belief, which is fine, which is okay, you know, whether I agree with some of the things or don't agree. But that's kind of, we saw each other as human beings. And he
Yeah.
said, I'm
That's
going
so
to walk away.
beautiful.
And he said, I'm never going to judge people anymore by the looks
Wow.
of them as a result of that. He goes, because I think I've probably met one of the most devout spiritual people that I've come across in my life. And you don't
Wow.
fit the bill. You don't fit, you don't wear the hijab, I don't read the Quran, I don't follow it, I don't, religion. I try to connect with people as who they are as human beings. There's good, there's bad, there's ugly in every single race,
Yeah.
religion, background. So there's good and bad. And I try to say, you know what, I don't want to carpet statement everything and everyone and say these people, you people. I try to say this person or that person or that name or whoever. I realize that what your story, it reminded me of that because we both walked away completely
Yeah.
coming away from that as a different, with a different perspective. So you in that plane ride up in the sky, in the quietness of that atmosphere together, the three of you,
Yeah.
probably that was I look at signs, and that's probably a sign that the three of you needed to meet each other for that moment and plant some seeds in each other's minds, and also confirm your love that you had with you and your wife, you know,
Yeah. I mean,
regardless of background or anything.
yeah. I don't know that we didn't need confirmation or something, but I think the beauty is he gave us the gift of his humanity,
Yeah,
and in some ways more powerfully than us because he had the courage to let go of his, you know, ideas.
that's a
That's a
wise person.
beautiful.
That's a wise man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, changing channels.
Yes.
There are some people out there that we have shows, not only in America, people that can communicate with the dead. Do you believe in that? Do you believe that that is possible spiritually?
I think so, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, but I'm open to some of these things. I've been watching a lot of near-death experiences recently, and it points to what I kind of feel in my experience that we are not just the body, that there's a feeling that we exist. We're in this body, but we're not a product of the body. We exist in the body. So I think there are things that are possible that I just don't have a lot of experience of. I don't communicate with the dead. Although one time, darn, I did it as a joke in a, well, it wasn't as a joke. I was doing an event, more of a comedy routine at a certain point. I had this persona at one point as a performer. It was, I am Swamik from India. And then I would create this mystery by pretending to be an Indian Swami. And then somebody asked me to contact their dead relative from the past, dead uncle, or not contact them, but say something, can I connect with their dead uncle? And then this thing came to my mind, and I was just doing it kind of in a fun way, so I wasn't really like seriously trying to, talk to the dead people, but in a fun way. I said I saw some kind of trap that his foot had gotten locked into. And then I maybe added a little bit more. It didn't really land, but the next day the person came back to me and she said, I talked to my family and this whole thing about his foot had gotten in a trap and all that. So who knows? I don't
I mean,
really know
that's
whether,
not something that you're. that you hear about every day. I mean, that's pretty specific.
Yeah. So
Did you
did I
try to
speak
did
to
you
the
try to
dead?
explore
Did I
that more?
tap into? No, I didn't try to explore more. It's not something that I'm interested in. I'm interested in reality on Earth, but I think I'm intrigued that there are people who channel other entities and all of that. Is what I'm struck by is the wisdom they express sounds authentic to me. Sometimes it's kind of spiritual insights, but sometimes you see very spontaneous, deep knowledge, and I go, well, something real is going on there. I don't know that I can explain it. I don't have the experience of entities or all of that, but yeah, I'm open to it, but I don't know.
Has anyone asked you looking for answers from someone who's, on the other side? Does that come up at all?
No, I don't think I've had anybody ask me that. People have asked me all kinds of things, but I don't think that in particular. Yeah.
I've had some very interesting experiences where I get messages, or I've gotten 2 or 3 times now, a message of someone who passed, and then right afterwards I would get a call and then see that they've already, passed on. And I've gotten dreams, I've gotten messages.
Yeah.
I can communicate with anyone. It's been people that I
Yeah.
know, which is very different. But
Right.
certainly makes me think that there's something there that maybe the way I look at it is maybe they're just at the end of the day we just cross over to other dimensions. Maybe everything is coexisting at the same time in different areas of time and space. I don't know.
There's a lot more there, and why shouldn't there be? Like, I mean, we can look back in history and see how people viewed the world, the earth as flat, and they didn't realize how much they didn't know. But why would now be any different than back then compared to what's possible and what actually exists in the universe? I just take a position of openness in relationship to these things and curiosity.
Have you met others just like yourself that you come across two great minds coming together that has the same experiences? I got to say, who comes to mind is someone like Uri Geller. Is that a comparison that you get a lot?
Not often, but I met Uri Geller. We were on a TV show together.
What was that like?
Uri Geller was actually someone who made me curious. The things that he did were so part of my journey of kind of going towards like, hey, this guy's doing these things on TV. When I was a kid, I was watching him do it. He was a young man, he was doing these things, and I was like, okay, and here I am now on the TV show, both of us here.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
Uh, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I saw something on Instagram and they were talking about how what you see is just all an illusion and they're basically giving
yeah,
away people's tricks and call it a magic trick. They actually started to talk about the fork thing and they're like, this is how it's done. I was watching and I was listening, but I was like, I've seen this in front of me. That's not what he did. That's not what Gerard did. I was
right.
right there. I've seen it plenty of times, and you don't care what angle people are, standing. You don't care where people are sitting. So it's interesting because a lot of that is coming out now, trying to debunk. But I was always wondering what is there when you come face to face with someone similar to your gift. So I keep
Yeah,
wanting to say the gift, what that's like. And I guess in a way, maybe it's a good thing to say that look at what's available for everybody. Go find, go explore, meet new people, see what's out there.
yeah,
All these
yeah,
incredible minds out there. You did a TEDx show talk. You did a TEDx talk.
yeah, a
And
bunch of
in
those.
it,
Yeah.
you had a quote that you said, no, not, then consider what is possible.
Mm.
Elaborate on that. What does that mean for you?
Yeah. Okay. It's basically the reality that there's a direct connection between our ability to suspend what we know, which means know not. Yeah, it's creating a link between our ability to suspend what we know and this state of innocence where we can discover more than we realize. I had a block when I was trying to write an article about mental health and I was struggling so much. And then I have a friend who's a well-known doctor, where I was having dinner with him. He's a very deep guy. He said, I told him I was struggling with that. He said, well, ask yourself why you're struggling, and some part of you knows why you're struggling. And all you have to do is be willing to receive the answer, but ask yourself. And so I left dinner, I'm in the car driving away, and I asked myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm trying to make the right points. There's no room for what I don't know, rather than express what's in my heart. To express what's in my heart, I can't just be holding thoughts alone. It's not just about the thoughts. It's about how I want to express them, how I want to bring them to life. And so as soon as I realized that, then it, really kind of opened up what I could write, and then that made a big difference. So yeah, the place of innocence is where we don't know.
No, not.
And then yeah, that's it. I've done a few TED Talks, and I always find it unsatisfying because it's a little bit too rigid. Like I have to kind of plan a certain amount of time. I'm much better at just being
But that stood
spontaneous.
out to me.
It's based on real insights that I have, but it's sometimes easier to communicate the insights without having to fit into a particular structure of a TED Talk.
Most people fall under the guise of being a realist or an idealist. You call yourself an idealist. What does that mean?
Yes, I mean, idealist means that I have a profound sense of possibilities. And now, in addition to it, I have confidence in my ability to bring out those possibilities. Whereas when I was younger, it was just idealism without action.
That was going to be my question. How would someone's life look if they constantly lived with that inner question? What is possible if they live their daily, maybe like you, even if you don't meditate, or if you just woke up every day and just ask yourself, what would life look like if I just woke up and said today, what is possible?
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful question.
And do you believe in manifestation?
Manifestation, in the sense of you intuit something is possible. Sometimes the creative process is, it's not preformed. You see a need and then you come up with a logical way to find an application that meets that need. You could call that manifestation too, of course. I'm thinking about it in the sense of you intuit something is possible, and then you have to dig deeper into yourself to uncover how to concretize it and make it present in reality, so that it's not just an intuition or an idea, but it's a reality. And that you could say is how I see manifestation.
Have you practiced that in your own life? Manifested?
That's the education project. I went to my wife one night and I said, I want to start a nonprofit. And she said, what is it about? And I said, the evolution of culture. She says, what does that mean? What is it going to look like? I said, I have no idea. She was like, that sounds so vague. And she says, I feel like there's something real there. So I love working with you, so I'll help you. And then she really was part of the process of also manifesting. And then it continues to be like that, because now that we've had success for 11 years in public schools, I'm thinking about how do we manifest, create more recognition for the importance of what makes us human in education as we enter an age of AI. So now I'm manifesting that, and I'm doing it in collaboration with others. So it's not just an individual manifestation, just like it wasn't with Francesca. We manifested this with students too and educators. And now I'm working with one of our principals, the head of a psychiatric hospital, and a senior researcher from Stanford University. And we're going to collaborate with other academics to create the reality that we see is possible and that really is important for the well-being of students and society.
Your educational program, working with schools right now in New York, is like another class that they're not offering in the general, school classes. So introducing something where the students get a chance to look at themselves on a deeper level and talk about the bigger questions about life and their existence, and how they are. So it's really inner look into the child's mind and thoughts and their dreams, and where they're at in life, where they may not get in their regular curriculum, but they'll be able to explore that and answer their own bigger questions about themselves and their lives. Is that right? Am I correct to say
Yeah,
that way?
Yeah, and it's, I would say it's self, others, and society.
and where they
So
fit with society.
yeah, and also how they relate to others. And the beauty is that this is not a solo exploration, it's something that they're doing together. And there's an incredible, extraordinary vulnerability and humanity in students engaging in these questions together in that way.
So obviously, 11 years you've been doing this. It's a
Yeah,
proven success. If it was not a success, schools would not keep inviting you back for their students.
yeah.
Um, and I will put the name and the link for you and your program so people can get in touch with you and hopefully expand outside of just New York. And is that something that you're interested in to go outside of just New York to other states in America or internationally as well? Do you have the bandwidth or the ability to set this platform and make it bigger on a global level?
What we're exploring is ways to partner that will not that will make it possible to train teachers. So we don't need to go into the school to train
Okay.
teachers. So that means that we don't have to have a lot of staff going in each school, working in each school. That the trainer can work with a bunch of schools and work with teachers that way, support teachers. And then to achieve a greater reach, we want to train trainers. So if we work with a network or with a country, something would have to be set up to make it possible on our end as a small nonprofit. And then that's why to have much more reach, we're working on the field building to impact the system of education itself. So even if we're teaching science, math, history, English, we're not just teaching them content, we're engaging their humanity.
Which is so incredibly important. There are so many people that are not getting those answers, maybe from their families, their friends, their circles, their society. These are very strong, important conversations to have. So when you have these conversations with kids that are teenagers, you're actually giving them training wheels to get out into the world and to be able to deal with anything and everything that comes their way and to look at it from a different perspective that they might have not heard before. I would love to see this as a curriculum, as a mandatory classes or something, because I think the more questions and the more answers kids have in a safe environment within the school system and with people that care about them and their lives the minute they get out of that school,
Right.
you're really helping these people to be able to maneuver through anything and everything that may come their way that they're not talking about on a daily basis. They may have little snippets of it on social media, but to sit there in school and have to be asked the question about who you are, what is your life about, what can you do to make a difference in society, and what is that about, to even open up that space, I think should be something that's a mandatory course.
Yes, in some of our schools, it is a mandatory course, and we have a curriculum that we give teachers. And it's beautiful because it's not just, asking the question, but creating scaffolding for students to be able to talk about questions that even most adults would find very difficult to speak about. So you have questions like the ones you mentioned. You have questions like, is life about me? Is life about others? We're all juggling that balance between self and others, but we don't have a space to really reflect on what it means. And so we can end up too much making life about others and then not live our own lives, and others can be too much making life about us. Yeah, I know
That's,
exactly. I was thinking of you when I
are you
said that.
talking to me?
Well, you're also taking a leap beyond that, so that's really beautiful because
Yes.
yes, and that's part of who you are too. That you really think of others. So that's been a really really beautiful thing. And but then there's some aspect of who you are, that your own fulfillment, and that's also really important too, which doesn't necessarily need to be separate from others as well. But these questions are really wonderful because they create space for us to. I I I've thought about these questions a lot because I've gone to this class. I've taught the class myself in the public school the first year. Every day I went to the Bronx to teach the class, and I've visited a lot of classes. Every time I think about the same topic, I think about it like there's more to learn, there's more to uncover. It's a really beautiful question because it has to do with how much do we embody it as best as we can.
And it's interesting because I'm imagining that these kids are going to go home and it's going to come up in their conversations at home, you know,
Yeah,
or at
it's
some point
beautiful.
with their own friends. So it's like you're planting the seeds, and it's okay to blossom. It's okay to ask. It's okay to explore. And it's okay
Yeah,
if you don't have the answers just yet either. It's okay not
yeah,
to know. And I'm sure, maybe without even realizing it, those are things that are going to come up with them, you know, with conversations with their friends, with their family members. So with this topic or these questions is going to go way outside of those school classrooms. So it's going to go into society, as you said, because it's going to be discussed in other circles. Maybe even if it's just as a quick topic, something may come up and they'll remember the conversations, and then that'll kind of grow.
yeah. There was a beautiful story from one girl who said um, that when she was taking the class, she comes from a Dominican. Her parents came to the country, and they hadn't gone to college. They hadn't gone to college, I guess. And then, so they came to the country, and the mother was like, to her daughter, she said, "This class that you're taking, I didn't make all this effort, you know, to get you to go to school and support you and all of that. So you take the classes like this." And then the girl started to bring home some of the questions and doing them with her family.
Wow.
And then her mom at the end was like, "Wow, I wish when I was in the Dominican Republic and I was in school, I wish we had something like that."
It reminds me of that's wonderful. I mean, that's exactly what I said. It reminds me of if you want to change the world, you know, how does that begin? First, you have to look within yourself, and then that conversation has to expand to your friends, to your loved ones, then that expands to your family, then that expands into society, into your city, then that expands into a global conversation. So I think what you're doing right now is amazing, and these are the topics. I didn't have them in school. I didn't have these kind of conversations in these
Yeah, me
classes,
neither.
and I
Me
think
neither.
they have access to everything right now. We have access to anything and everything. We can even ask these questions, but the emotional part and the exchange is not going to happen until you're having that exchange and you're having those emotions asking them. So that's something that that's a button that you're pushing on for people, and I think it's wonderful. So I hope that it expands to much, much more than just New York. I hope it goes nationwide. I hope it goes global. I hope they all reach out to you afterwards, and somebody will see this and be like, you know what, we want to bring this to our schools as well. So good for you for setting up this platform, setting up this educational program. Um, how do
Thank
you
you.
handle fear? How do you
Oh,
handle anxiety? How do you
beautiful
handle
question.
stress?
That's so beautiful. All right, so I actually have a good answer to that because it's kind of become a little bit clearer more recently that because I had a conversation with a friend who was dealing with anxiety recently. So fear, anxiety is our body mind's response to certain situations. I had anxiety a few years ago during COVID. I think it triggered an experience of helplessness that I had in childhood, and I had gut wrenching anxiety in my stomach. And I noticed something really interesting in myself, which was that I did not make the link that I usually make, which is to conclude that my life is negative or my experience is negative because I feel this. So I allowed it to be a feeling that I was going through with a little bit of curiosity, being real about the discomfort because it was debilitating in a way. That kind of anxiety can be so unnerving. But I think what gave me the strength to do that is knowing that it's not who I am. It's something that I'm experiencing. If we think what we feel is who we are, then if we feel something really bad, then we're going to think something is really, really bad about us. That's why we can identify with being wounded. But if we know that what we think and what we feel is not who we are, then it creates a space to allow it to be there and allow it to unfold and maybe show us something that we didn't see before, because fear and even anxiety point to things that we need to see sometimes.
I always say it to my friends, whatever you're going through, it's temporary, you know, knowing
Yeah,
that fear or anxiety or stress that you're feeling, that, you know, the opposite of that will also come as well. Just hang in there.
yes. So that, and the deeper truth behind that is that it's temporary because it's not who we are.
It's temporary because it's not who we are. So who
It's
are
not,
we then?
I can't put it into words, but it's like the self that experiences everything, the self that is wanting to do what it wants to do here, whatever its reason for being here is. We experience life and some challenges and beauty, but even the beauty, the accomplishments and all of that, they're not who we are. They're part of our journey, and we should cherish those too, and deal with the challenges. I guess if we see who we are as spirit or the soul, when we experience a challenge, it's going to pass because everything changes, but the soul is still the soul. Who we are is still who we are. We don't like
And
change
that's
who
part
we
of the
are.
experience we're here for.
Yeah. I used to have this argument with Francesca that, that I said I've changed a lot, since about 20, 25 years ago. And she would keep telling me, no, I don't believe you. You've always been the same person.
Hmm.
And I think I've kind of seen that what she's saying is true. I've always been this person, but I had other layers that made me an arrogant young man, that made me look like an arrogant young man, that made me, you know, I didn't fully express who I was. Now that I express more who I am, and I look back at the expression, the outer expression of who I was before, it's a big difference from when I was a young man. But still, I was always that person. It was just waiting to come out.
Right. Right. If you were going to give someone a one sentence or a quick answer on how to calm down if they're really dealing with that immediate stress and anxiety and fear of something that they're going through, you have to realize that that's not who you are. But can you just simplify it for me? If someone comes to me and they're like, I'm scared, I'm full of anxiety, I'm fearful about this or whatever, what would you say to them? If there was a quick answer for them to ease them, what would you say?
I think some of it has to do with engaging on a human level and connecting with their humanity, because sometimes the feelings disconnect us from our humanity, which is who we really are, right? Connecting with our humanity is really important. One thing I've asked my sister, which was very powerful in one of those circumstances, tell me what your psychological self thinks about this situation, and tell me what your soul self thinks about this situation.
Mhm.
And that allowed her to see.
I never thought about that, but yeah, this is not who you are. This is an experience that you're having. And I guess what I'm also hearing from that is, again, it's temporary. This is not who you are. This is
Yeah,
experience that you're going through.
I wouldn't say to someone who's grieving the loss of something that got stolen or a job or whatever. I wouldn't say, oh, well, this is not who you are. I wouldn't deny the reality of their experience, because it's important to also acknowledge the experience that somebody is having, but it's also that not the whole of their experience. So somehow, without making it sound like you're taking away from part of their reality, is to be able to include their experience. For instance, I had a surgery recently and I had a lot of suffering and challenges with it for a period of months. And I woke up one morning after a terrible night of pain and lack of sleep. And all of a sudden I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, actually, I'm totally fine. So I realized there's a part of me that's actually completely fine. Like my soul is untouched by this bodily challenge that I'm experiencing. Does that mean that I'm not experiencing the bodily challenge? Yes, I'm still experiencing, but
You looked at
somehow
it from
this,
another angle, the same problem from a different angle.
yeah, there's just another reality there that's also present that we might not be aware of.
How about failure? Would that be the same? How do you deal with failures?
I sometimes say that my greatest success is failing at purifying myself.
What does
Much
that
was
mean?
learned. We can learn a lot from failure. Maybe we failed because something is not aligned. Maybe we failed because we weren't meant to be doing that. Maybe we failed because there's something else that we need to learn. So sometimes what happens is we fail at something and we needed to learn something, but we go straight to trying again. And we need to let go of something. Maybe we needed to embrace something differently. The best way to respond to failure is to look for opportunity in it.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's the ability to turn it around and to confirm that failure had to happen before you get to the next place in life, your next chapter, the next phase, whatever that lesson was. You had to pass.
Yeah.
I say it like it's a tunnel. You have to go through this tunnel to get to the other side. You're gonna go through this.
Yeah. And there are things that we might fail at that we might also kind of go, you know what, I was coming from the wrong place, but it's not getting stuck there too.
What's your advice to someone who says, I want to be a mentalist?
I'm smiling because you're asking me all these questions. I feel like
What?
uh, well, no, I feel a little bit like I'm I'm like an orator, like it's not bad, but I'm just feeling a little self-conscious about it. Oh, like I'm the source of wisdom, whatever.
Well, we all are, right? I have some wisdoms I can
Yeah,
share with people about certain
yeah,
things.
yeah,
You have some. I'm picking on those sources of wisdom that are.
yeah. I appreciate your questions. They're beautiful. They're really beautiful.
I'm truly curious.
So what was the question again? I forgot.
So if someone says, I want to be a mentalist,
That question. I have that come to me. I think part of it is it depends. After they've seen me, I feel like I need to clarify what is it about it that is attractive to you, because sometimes they're attracted to the energy that comes from me and they think that that's the mentalist part, whereas it's not necessarily. And sometimes it's that they want to be able just to do what I do. I try to clarify that first, and then if they want to become a mentalist, then I say the best way is to study with someone who is.
does any part of this show up in the educational program as well?
No, not really. I think the only thing I would say that it shows up in it is the insights about life. For instance, a big insight that I bring into my work as a mentalist is that the power of making room for what we don't know. And making room isn't even quite the best phrasing, because it's really like the beauty of the unknown, the beauty of that, right? And so for when we train teachers, we have 9 core competencies for engaging students' humanity. And one competency is making room for the unknown, because it's so powerful when students have room, when the teacher makes room for the unknown in a educational context where it's all about having the right answers. And then it creates space for kids to think for themselves. And that's incredibly beautiful and impactful when kids truly think for themselves instead of having to come up with the right answers. It's just amazing.
As we say, it is in the unknown that new possibilities are created.
Yeah, and in schools, the unknown sounds very esoteric, but in a school setting, in exploring these questions, it's very practical. It's like, as a teacher, do I really have a final answer to this question? Am I going to act like I have the answer? No, I don't, right?
That's
And
funny.
then is there a right answer to, is life about me? Is life about others? No, there isn't a right answer. But is there an answer that rings true to students' lives? Yes. So let's just make room for them to explore what rings true to them, and it's very, very powerful to have that
It's actually
space.
really funny because as you're saying this, I'm thinking it's the exact opposite of why people go to school.
Yeah,
You go to,
that's right. Yeah,
people go to school so that you're
yeah,
no longer in the unknown.
yeah,
You go there because there's questions and there's answers. There's what
yeah,
happened and there's solutions and conclusions.
yeah,
So, here you are saying we're going to go back to school and now we're going to actually allow you to go into the unknown and come up with something new. We don't have the answer for you, but you do.
yeah,
It's very interesting how it's the exact opposite.
yeah. And I look at it as in terms of education. It obviously needs to teach the answers for answers, because if we're going to be scientists and mathematicians and all of that, we have to have we need that fixed knowledge or knowledge
Critical.
of history, but we need to have the right answers to understand history, understand science, math, and all of that. But in terms of understanding ourselves, we don't want to reduce ourselves to an object. So it's important to have room for the unknown.
So let me ask you, you're a thinker. As a thinker, with everything that's going on in the world right now, there's the good, there's the bad, there's the ugly, and maybe it's all of this that we have to go through for something better. We see about what's happening in politics and what's going on around the world. Is this growing pains, or is this the downing of empires, the changing of mindsets collectively? If I had to ask you, is this the storm before the calm, or is this the calm before the storm?
Well, it's definitely a storm. I have no doubt about that. It's the storm. What came to my mind when you said that is that before the storm, the calm that existed before the storm was not where I would want to be living, because I feel that in that calm there was a lot of complacency, a lot of assumptions about who we are, assumptions about what it means to be Republican, what it means to be a Democrat, a lot of fixed ideas, a static sense of self, and an educational world that doesn't really meet our current needs as a humanity, which reflects where we were at as a society. So I think the storm calls on each of us to dig deeper into what's important and reality, because it's only out of that place that the solutions arise. So we might make a mistake and say, oh, we have to fix the things that are causing the storm, the external things that are causing the storm, whether it's politicians or whatever.
You're saying that the storm was needed.
But actually the storm is something that can help us go deeper into what really matters, because without that, we are not going to be on solid ground.
Are you hopeful for the future of humanity?
Yeah, absolutely hopeful. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm not naive. I'm not naive. Optimist. I don't know how long this storm is going to last, how much suffering it's going to take. I have no idea. But yeah, I'm very, very hopeful. Yeah.
Do you think AI is a good thing for us? Do you think it's helping us maybe enhance our intuition, enhance our knowledge? Is it a good thing? And of course, people are going to say, yes, it's good as long as it's used well and as long as it's used correctly. But what are your personal thoughts about the speed of technology that we're racing towards?
Well, the technology is going to make a lot of what we do better. Like medicine, science, maybe even addressing the environmental crisis. Maybe some of that will come out of the technology. Yes, technology will help probably with that. So there's what we do, but then there's who we are. Technology can also exacerbate the disconnection between who we are. So that's also possible. But maybe as that gets worse, it'll have a similar impact that I'm describing about going through the storm, that we're going to realize that we have to focus and support who we are, the development of who we are much more. And so that can become a priority in education, because as we enter an age of AI, if we're not anchored in our humanity, we can go all over the place. Just like social media affected students in profound ways, the issue wasn't the social media itself. The issue is the already disconnection from our humanity and from each other.
Yes.
Otherwise, social media wouldn't have as much of an impact. So I think the same is true going forward.
Huge topic. Huge topic. Let's talk about Gerard for a second. What is something that you always wanted to do but you haven't yet?
Go to the Antarctic.
Me
I
too.
don't think I'm going to do that. Go into space. I'm not going to do that, even if I'm offered well, I don't know, but not writing a book. And maybe I'll do that at some point when I have more time.
What would it be about? The educational, your
Topics,
biography, autobiography?
No, I'm not really drawn to do that, but I have one about education. And the other one is about, I don't know exactly how to put it into words right now without giving away the title, but it's about light in the universe.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
And maybe the two intersect.
I like
So
that.
two books might be fall into one book.
I can't wait. I can't wait for you to open up some time in your life so that you're able to actually to do that.
Yeah.
With that, I just have a couple of more questions. And what is your mission in life? What do you think your mission is in this life?
It's a question that can be answered on different levels. You know, I could take the tact of this education project that would be on the more concrete level. It's definitely what I feel the rest of my time, what I want the rest of my time to be devoted to. So is prioritizing what makes us human in education. But I would say that on a deeper level is I want to concretize things that are meaningful and profound. I want to make them, I want to help make them more accessible and present in the world.
I could also add to that, knowing you and being your friend, to say
Yeah.
that you're answering people's questions about life and you're allowing them a space to go explore that, but you're doing it in a fun way. It's almost like through who you are, or the work that you do, the experiences you share, you're giving everyone small morsels in a
Yeah.
fun way, in a non-threatening, fun way. You're pulling people out of their normal zones, their normal mindset, and in a fun way, you're allowing them to dream and to think bigger and to think outside the box.
Yeah. And one other answer that what you just said made me think of is that I'm being myself. And in some ways, it's not about other people, but it's about allowing what's in my heart to be expressed and come out.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah.
mission.
To be allowed to be comfortable with who you are, even if other people don't understand it, but still
Yeah.
push
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you want to be one day, and I hope it's many, many, many decades later, many, many decades later, how do you want to be remembered with everything that you've done, with all your life experiences? What would you want to be remembered as? And it's kind of what you just said, but how would you like to be
Yeah.
remembered?
I don't want this to come across as humble because I think that I don't know that Gerard needs to be remembered. I mean, okay, my friends and family, I don't necessarily need them to remember me in a particular way, but just for who I am, obviously. But beyond that, do I really need to be remembered? What I want, if I'm really honest, what I want to be remembered is the depth of the ideas, and then I want them to be built upon, the education piece. So if I write a book, that's why I lean more towards writing a book about education than a biography, because, and sometimes biography can carry ideas too forward. So I'm not necessarily, doesn't mean I rule it out entirely, but if I'm moved on beyond this world, or if I don't exist anymore, what does it matter if I get remembered or not? I mean, yes, for our loved ones, but not broadly. Do you agree?
I agree. Do
Yeah,
you have
no, that's
another
fine.
5 minutes?
Yes.
Another 5 minutes? Okay. So this is just like something fun, like quick fire, the shortest, fastest answer that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay? So,
Yeah.
what upsets you the most?
I'm just going completely blank. What
We'll come
upsets
back
me
to
the
that.
most?
When are you at your happiest?
When I'm creating manifestation, when I'm making things concrete.
What's your favorite food?
Falafel.
Favorite thing to do in your off time?
Ski, but I don't do it anymore.
Ski?
Yeah.
Nice. I don't ski. Favorite childhood memory?
When I was um 11 or 12, we went for a hike and somebody died. in the restaurant where we were outdoor seating benches having lunch. And I felt this tremendous feeling of peace and that everything is okay.
Wow. Wow. So that moment of clarity at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. What's your biggest fear?
Failure of this education project.
Fair enough. What kind of people repel you?
But no, I would say people who act like they care but are really looking for themselves.
What kind of people do you love?
I love people who pursue their hearts,
Something that you've always struggled with.
expressing myself,
Got it?
because there's
Something
always more to express.
something most people don't know about you. And here is where you want to let them know.
Well, I shared, I already shared that I did solitary retreats for 6 weeks at a time. Oh, something came to my mind. I once sat under a tree until something changed, and it ended up being about 6 weeks.
I say sometimes when I'm really exhausted and tired, I just wish that I could just go sit under a tree for a while and just chill. You did that,
Yes.
but I never said
Yeah.
for 6 weeks. For 6 weeks? Did you get the answer?
Yeah.
Would you recommend that?
No,
Why?
because something changed temporarily. If you go into a cave, for instance, and you just leave the world behind, you're going to experience change. But that's change in your state. That's a different kind of change than by doing something extreme or doing drugs that changes your state. But being more yourself, that's the real change.
Gerard Senehi, what is your message to the world?
My message is just what I'm doing, I guess. I think life is beautiful. It's to be embraced. There's something that unfolds in magical ways when we're being ourselves. And then I think what I'm discovering now and curious about is what it means to be ourselves together, because that's also just part of the beauty sometimes. I just think life is really beautiful and we're here to manifest.
Thank you so much. So, if people want to get in touch with you about the school educational programs, maybe want you to give a lecture somewhere or have an event where you're sharing your experiences with people. Is that okay for me to share your website, your contact information, so people can reach out to you?
You can leave both links, who I am as the experimentalist and who I am in the question project.
The Question Project. So, the name of the educational program is the Question Project.
Yep.
Well, hopefully I'll get a chance to see you again here in Istanbul, or I'll come over there to New York. And I can't tell you how grateful I am to you. I always say when we get out of monologue and into dialogue, that's where new possibilities are created. And you did that with me. And I learned something from you. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you, NEDA. Questions are beautiful. They call me into presence, so you impact me. Great.
Okay, before we go, I have one other question. What is your intention when you have these shows? I call it the performance, but I mean that's what it is. I've seen you on stage. You're integrating with people. You're talking to people. You're asking questions. You're showing them these incredible, unusual experiences that people have. But really, for me, it's a touch of psychic ability. It's a little bit of mind reading. It's a little bit of magic, whatever it is. You're doing this very comfortably and very convincing in front of all these people. What is the agenda? What is the intention of you doing these shows for people?
I, I think I'm inspired to do two things. One is I want to give people a joyful disruption of their reality, a sense of wonder, a sense of mind blowing. How are these things possible? So that's one part of what I've always wanted to do. And then more recently, I'm also really feel inspired to create this sense of possibilities and reveal parts of whatever that are unseen. Like if it's a birthday celebration, I want to reveal a little bit more about the wonder of time and the mystery of time. If it's a anniversary. It's about the wonder of love, the beauty of love, the magic and all of that. And the company setting, if it's about innovation, I want to reveal, the kind of mind that allows innovation to unfold. So it all depends on the context, but I like to bring more of the invisible side of life
Oh, I
into my
like that.
shows.
You like to bring more the invisible part of that fits into my love and my curiosity of the unknown and the mysteries of the world,
Yeah,
the invisible
exactly.
parts of our existence. I wish people had a chance. I hope more people get a chance to see who you are and what you do in person, because there's one thing to sit here and talk about it and talk about who you are and what you've done. It's a completely different animal when they sit across from you while you're having these shows with people to see what you do, to see what comes out of people, the shock and awe, the inner child just blossoms. I wish there was a way. I wish I could have done something to show people a little bit of a snippet of some of your talent, some of what you do. So I just hope that people get a chance to get the Gerard Senni experience, to see the Mentalist in person. Because I've been there, I've seen it many times. There's no way I could even put the words who you are and what you do until people see it for themselves. So I hope you get a chance to travel the world, go to as many places as you can, and let everyone get inspired and shock some people and let everyone go back into the place of magic where new possibilities are. And just like you said best, see something invisible that you haven't seen before, and only you can do that. I mean, I've lived a long time. I've never met a person like you. I've met a lot of people in my life, not a lot of people that have created that kind of a wow and awe in me. So I wish everyone gets a chance to see that in person.
I could do one thing that is super impressive right now, which
Really?
is
What?
I am going to make myself disappear
Disappear?
into the emptiness.
Does that mean you got to say goodbye and you got to disconnect me?
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to disconnect now or what. You said I have to stay
So
on.
you're like, this is. Thank you so much.
Me too, Neda.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
too.
much for